Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, and as you can see, I have made it home. It is officially college break, and that means there is NCAA basketball that is going to be happening over the weekend, so stay in tune and watch all of those games. I know I'm going to be watching a lot of those games, and my college, Quinnipiac University, finally we clinched a regular season title, meaning that we've won the regular season. We're the best team in our conference. So hopefully we can represent the MAAC in the NCAA tournament, but that's not what we're going to be talking about in this show. We're going to be focusing on NBA basketball. And in the first segment, we have the Boston Celtics losing to the Denver Nuggets. Jason Tatum underperformed a lot in this game, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And in the second segment, we are going to talk about Stephen Curry getting injured and leaving early in the Chicago Bulls game and what that could mean for the Golden State Warriors going into the season. And in the third segment, as always, we're going to do a quick NBA recap of all of the games that went down. But before I begin with all of those segments, I'd like to remind everybody to please tip and to donate and to use the link in the description and the link displayed below the ticker on every sports segment. That is gsmcspodcast.net, and it puts the comments directly in front of my screen, and it really helps the show out. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the Boston Celtics losing to the Denver Nuggets. Now, if you paid attention and if you've listened on previous podcasts, then you'd know that I said, and I have the opinion, that the Boston Celtics are the best team and the team to beat in the East. Now, I only said the East. In the West, there are a lot more teams that have good possibility of beating them and competing against them. One of those teams being the Denver Nuggets. So I'm just going to go ahead and look at the box scores real quick just to show the stats. So Nikola Jokic, he ended the game with a triple-double, as per usual. And as per usual, when he ends the game with a triple-double, the Nuggets end up winning. So he had 32 points, 11 assists, and 12 rebounds. And by far was the best player on the floor and the most outstanding player on the floor. He didn't shoot any three-pointers. However, he shot 11 for 19 from the field. Super efficient, great basketball player. In my opinion, he is going to end his career as king, Mr. Triple-Double and the king of triple-doubles. Russell Westbrook, he held that name for a while, but I think Jokic is definitely much better and much more efficient than Russell Westbrook. And his triple-doubles, I feel like they bring a lot more value to his team than Russell Westbrook's triple-doubles. And he makes it feel a lot more natural. Like, Russell Westbrook's triple-doubles, they look much more forced compared to Nikola Jokic. And part of that is because, since he's a point guard, he is forced to go down there and get rebounds. So that means he has to drop from the perimeter to go get rebounds. So not to mention his assists, they also look like they're forced as well. There are opportunities, and there are actually several clips where Russell Westbrook, he makes a pass, or unnecessarily, and he could make the layup if he actually just went up, but instead he decided to pass for whatever reason. And again, like I mentioned with the rebounds, he always drops down from the perimeter to try and go get the rebounds, meaning that he tends to leave a lot of his defenders open, or a lot of his the people that he's guarding open from three, which affects the team because he's allowing open shots. But meanwhile, Jokic, he's already in the paint and he's already the tallest player, so rebounds are like a given. What's really impressive are the assists, because it's like he has eyes behind his back. He has the exact same playmaking skills as LeBron James, in my opinion. Now, Jamal Murray, he ended the game with 19 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, very impressive. Aaron Gordon ended the game with 16 points and 9 rebounds. Michael Porter Jr. wasn't that good in this game. Only 9 points in 30 minutes. He did not shoot the ball very particularly well, But that didn't really matter because Jason Tatum didn't shoot the ball particularly well either in this game. So now we're going to look at the Boston Celtics side. So Jason Tatum, he ended the game with only 15 points, 5 of 13. And Kristaps Porzingis ended up shooting more shots than Jason Tatum. Now, I don't agree with that whatsoever. Jason Tatum is the number one option. There should not be anyone else taking more shots than Jason Tatum, especially over someone like, I guess the game plan was like try and bully Jokic, given how like Jokic isn't that good of a defender. But it just wasn't working for Kristaps tonight. He ended the game shooting 9 of 23 from the field, 3 of 10 from 3 with 24 points. And that poor shooting definitely played a part in the Boston Celtics being unable to win this game. And Jason Tatum refusing to take a lot of shots for whatever reason. And Jaylen Brown, however, he showed up in this game. He ended the game with 41 points and shot 16 of 29 from the field. This has sort of been the problem with Jason Tatum. It's like every single time that there is an important game, he just doesn't shoot the ball as much. Now, there are moments, he has clutch moments. I'm not saying that he doesn't have clutch moments, but it's the really, really big games. And I guess, like, in hindsight, that's not really bad because it's like he can make it all the way to the Eastern Conference. But at this point in the Celtics, like, tenure with him, they're tired of just making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. They want to win. And if Tatum can't really, like, perform well in these huge games, how can they rely on him to win in the future? It's a very difficult problem with Jason Tatum, and I'm sure he got absolutely flamed on Twitter, given how like there are a lot of Kobe fans, and those Kobe fans were probably out there attacking Tatum for underperforming in this game. But again, it's a very huge problem, and the Celtics, they were the favorites going into this game, and they should have been able to at least make it competitive. With like the fact that Tatum didn't take like the second most shots at least on the team just does not make any sense to me. Why was he refusing to shoot? And this was a great game, and it really shows like that the Denver Nuggets, they're still here, and they can still compete with any team in the league, even with and the Boston Celtics, they've been losing in a lot of other games. They recently lost to the Cavs the other day, if you remember when I covered that game on my NBA recap, and now losing to Denver. It's like these are competitive teams. These are teams that you're probably going to see in the playoffs. And the reason why it's such a big deal is because the Nuggets, they beat the Celtics every single time in the regular season. This season they've won every single game. And it's scary. It's very scary because this is supposed to be the year for the Boston Celtics. This is arguably their best team that they've assembled in a while. This is a super team almost. I mean, they have the chemistry from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They also have the chemistry coming off the bench, Al Horford, players like that. Adding Kristaps, he's a great defensive option given how tall he is, and he's a shooter. Drew Holiday, a great point guard that can defend. Well, a good point guard that can defend and is really good on the offensive side of the ball. I already mentioned Jaylen Brown, who he's the second option and was arguably the best player in the final series against Golden State. And then there's also Derek White, who, while he might not be consistent on offense every single night, he's very consistent on defense, and that's what makes the Boston Celtics stand out. It's their defense, and I say this countless of times. Defense is always going to be a lot more reliable in the playoffs than offense. However, they tend to shoot a lot of threes. Now, this could be good and bad. Like, shooting a lot of threes could obviously get you a lot of points, but like you gotta make those threes. And if there comes a point in the playoffs where they just can't make any threes, where do they go from there? Like, we saw this problem with the Houston Rockets all the way back in 2018, where they missed 29 straight three-pointers. Yet they were somehow able to keep the game close against the Golden State Warriors, who have KD, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and DeMarcus Cousins. DeMarcus Cousins wasn't there. Pardon me, that's my bad. No, just KD, just Steph, just Klay, and Draymond, and Iguodala and Sean Livingston, all those players that come off the bench. And they were able to keep that game close. If Houston would have made at least 2 or 3 more three-pointers when they were missing all of those three-pointers straight, they would have ended up winning the game. But it was because they were relying on the three ball so much that they ended up losing that game, and they just couldn't really recover from that. That was Houston's time. That was Houston's opportunity to win something and to win a title with James Harden at the helm and James Harden winning the MVP. That was their time, and they blew it. And this problem could happen for the Boston Celtics as well. And this game is definitely going to affect Jason Tatum in the MVP standings. I was just in a meeting earlier, and we were having a discussion whether or not Jason Tatum is top 5 in the NBA, and considering how he's top 5 in MVP voting. Now, obviously, Jason, he's not top 5 in the NBA. And now he's top 5 in MVP voting solely because he is the best player on the best team. The best player on the best team gets top 5 MVP, but it gets top 5 in the MVP rankings by default. And it really seems like Jason Tatum, he's not the best player in the NBA. He's not top 5 in the NBA. The team is good, and they have an overall great team, but him as an individual, no, he's not top 5. Please, LeBron James is better than him, and people won't put him in his top 5 for some reason. A lot of people won't put LeBron in the top 5 current players right now, and I don't agree with that whatsoever. I do think that LeBron is better than Tatum. I think Luka Doncic is better than Tatum. I think Giannis is better than Tatum. I think Shai is better than Tatum. And let's think, who else? Who else is better than Tatum? Joel Embiid, when he's healthy, he's better than Tatum. And let me think. I have to think off the top of my head. If I didn't say Steph Curry, yeah, Steph Curry, he's better than Jason Tatum. And I just named 5 right there. I could keep going. Nikola Jokic, he's better than Jason Tatum. And again, there's so many other players in the league. Kevin Durant. And I don't want to say Devin Booker. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna say Devin Booker, but there's so many other players that actually, wait a minute, there might be an argument for Devin Booker. Now that I think about it, Devin Booker is definitely he's the better scorer between the two, but I don't think he's a better defender than Jason Tatum. So the jury's still out for that one. But I already named 5 players that are better than Jason Tatum, and it also shows in the season that they've been better. Now, this doesn't really affect the Boston Celtics much, simply because they're probably going to win the East, and hopefully they could end up winning the East. I really don't think there's a team in the East that could compete against them. It's more so the West that I'm worried about for that team. Teams the Denver Nuggets and teams like the Clippers and maybe, I can't say Minnesota now because they just lost Karl Anthony Towns. I don't think Oklahoma is going to make it that far, but arguably maybe even Phoenix. Phoenix could make it far, and if Luka pulls off some sort of miracle again, we could see him in the finals this year with Kyrie Irving. So, but then again, this is all just all of the teams in the West, they're very, very competitive, and they're all very good. Now, the Celtics, obviously, in the East, the competition is a little bit easier for them, so it's almost guaranteed that they're going to make the Eastern Conference Finals. If they don't, it's going to be disappointing. If they do make it and they lose, it's still going to be disappointing. So a lot of pressure on the Boston Celtics. But with that, we are out of time for this first segment. So now we are going to go into the second segment and talk about Stephen Curry leaving the Bulls game with an ankle injury. So I will be right back after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in the second segment, we are going to be talking about Stephen Curry, who left the game, who left the Chicago Bulls game in an ankle injury, with an ankle injury, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and what that could mean for the Golden State Warriors going into the season. But before I begin with this segment, I'd like to remind everybody to please use the link in the description to tip and to donate and to get your comments recognized. It really helps the show. The link is gsmcspodcast.net. It is displayed below the ticker on every show segment and it's in the link in the description as well. So let's go right ahead and talk about Stephen Curry and his ankle injuries. Now, of all the things that plague Steph Curry the most, ankle injuries has to be in the top 3. He almost always seems to mess up his ankle in some way, shape, or form. And part of that is because he does do a lot of running, and because he does a lot of running, I mean, it makes sense how his ankles, they tend to be a little bit more flimsy than a lot of other players that just stand there most of the time. But his ankles, they've always been a problem since college and going into the NBA. He almost always, and when he's on a run, he has, on a great mid-season run, he gets hurt. He got hurt in 2018, I believe. He got hurt in 2013, 2014, and they've sort of they've all plagued him every single time. And with that in mind, the Golden State Warriors now, with the team that they have, they can't really say, oh, we'll be all right when Curry is out, because in previous years, when Curry did get injured, there were players like Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Sean Livingston, Andre Iguodala, all of those players on the exact same team while Curry was still injured. So it wasn't like they were losing much. It was okay, we'll be good, we'll be fine, because they had 2 potential players that could have been a 6-man. Putting Sean Livingston at point guard is a ridiculous power move that the Golden State Warriors had, and they didn't really get affected by it that much in previous seasons. But now is a different story. Now it's a completely different story, because Steph Curry is about the only bright spot that the Golden State Warriors have, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Now, I mean, other than Kuminga, but I'm not entirely sure if Kuminga can carry this team while Steph Curry is out, and I don't think he can do that by himself. Now, unless Klay Thompson, if Klay Thompson just like figures out how to shoot again and like how to shoot more efficiently, then maybe he could help as well. But they could put Chris Paul at the point guard. They could like put him back in the starting lineup, and he'll probably uplift the team. He always brings value to the team. So maybe they won't be. Maybe there's a possibility that they won't be as bad. And like they'll be all right, waiting for Steph Curry to return from his injury. But there's also the slim chance where it's like they're going to tank. And I'm very reluctant on saying that they're going to be all right because, again, this just goes all the way back to Joel Embiid's injury. I thought the Sixers would be all right, and here they are dropping all the way down to the play-in tournament. Now, Steph Curry, he ended the game with 15 points, 5 of 18 from the field. So I was talking about how good he is and like how they needed him in this game. He didn't really help that much. 3 for 12 from 3. Not very good shooting coming in from someone who is the greatest three-point shooter in NBA history. But I digress. Klay Thompson ended the game with 25 points. He did not shoot that efficiently, however. 5 of 12 from the three-point line and 9 of 21 from the field. Jonathan Kuminga shot efficiently, however. And we have somebody in the chat. Crucial PG. The Warriors are in trouble with Steph's injury. Yes, that's what I'm saying. But like again, there's a slim chance that like maybe Chris Paul could elevate the team. I know he's washed. I know he's not the same player that he was in previous seasons, but you're a Clippers fan. You should like Chris Paul, and like he should probably have a little more faith in him. In this game, he shot 6 of 8 from the field and ended the game with 15 points and 5 assists. So, Crucial PG in the chat said, no, he does not like Chris Paul. Okay, my bad. I thought being a Clippers fan and all that you would end up liking him, and given how I guess he hasn't really done much for your Clippers, blowing a bunch of leads, but I digress. So, yeah, I guess the Warriors, they could be in a lot of trouble going into continuing on with the rest of the season. But then again, like, what other team would take that spot in the Western Conference? I don't really see the Utah Jazz winning that many games. Nor do I see Portland making a run for it, nor do I see Memphis making a run for it. So they might be able to stay afloat for the play-in because I just don't see the Utah Jazz or the Houston Rockets or all of those teams competing for that spot. I mean, maybe Houston, but I mean, looking at their schedule, they play the Spurs twice, then they play the Mavericks, then they play the Lakers, then they play the Knicks, then they play the Grizzlies, and the Pacers, and the Timberwolves. Okay, yeah, they're bad. They're not looking good. Their schedule is not looking good whatsoever. Crucial PG has a lot to say in the chat, so I'm going to read it off. But being real, he's not as washed as most players his age would be. His defense has dropped off, but he's still gonna shoot his crab mid-ranges, and obviously is still an elite passer. Which exactly. So he can impact the team in some way. But looking at their schedule and how difficult it seems to look for the rest of these games, it's not looking good. But I'm just going to go ahead and take a look at the standings real quick just to see. Yeah, look. So right now they're above the Lakers in the play-in, and the Utah Jazz, yeah, there are a few games behind them, and Houston Rockets are also a few games behind them. So maybe one of those teams can steal that spot if they don't end up winning a lot of games on their schedule. But yeah, this is a really bad time for a Steph Curry injury. Now, looking at the Chicago Bulls, DeMar DeRozan, he ended the game with 33 points. Kobe White ended the game with 20 points. Nikola Vucevic ended the game with 33 points and 11 rebounds. It's kind of weird how without Zach LaVine, they just decide, let's play some great basketball now. And the starters scored 105 points, with the bench scoring the rest of the 20 points. DeRozan shot hyper efficient from the field, 10 of 17 from the entire field, 3 of 6 from 3, and I mean the Bulls, maybe they could make the playoffs. I mean, right now they're the ninth seed and they hold a play-in spot, and looking at the play-in, they're probably going to have to beat either the Hawks, or the Pacers. Now, if they match up against the Pacers, I'm not entirely sure if their offense is going to be quick enough for them. Now, Crucial PG had another comment. Rockets been pretty solid recently. I'd look out for them. Yes, and Sengun has been really good in a lot of these games, and I mean, Dylan Brooks he's like, a lot of people call him a villain, but so far he's definitely improved his offensive game. And Crucial PG thinks that the Bulls beat the Pacers. I mean, the Pacers defense is really, really bad, but DeMar DeRozan, he shoots a lot of mid-ranges, and I feel like those mid-ranges, if they're not knocking down as much in a crucial game, because I've seen DeMar DeRozan in very important games, and he underperforms in a lot of them. If the mid-ranges aren't knocking down, those three-pointers are going to come, and they're going to come very, very fast. So I'm not entirely sure if I'm too hot on the Bulls beating the Pacers, especially if the Pacers are having a great offensive night. I understand their defense is really, really bad, but DeRozan and in very important games, I don't trust him. I don't trust him one bit, and that's sort of been the problem with DeRozan in his entire career. He's underperformed in important games for the Raptors. He's underperformed in important playoff games for the Spurs, and he's done so as well with the Bulls. And it's just it's something that haunts him. I don't understand why. I think LeBron scarred him. I genuinely think LeBron scarred him, and now he is afraid of the playoffs. But all jokes aside, they ended up winning this game because what was his name? Brandon. I can't pronounce his last name. Podzimski. Forgive me if I botched that game. If I botched that last name. He missed a layup, and that costed them the game. If I'm looking at the box scores properly. Now let me just go ahead and make sure that I got his name right. Let me just see. Just going down. And yep, Podzimski missed a layup that would have tied the game, but because he missed that, Jesus, there's a lot of messages. Oh my gosh. Okay. Podzimski. Okay, that's how you pronounce his name. That's fantastic. Crucial PG said, see, but that's the thing with the Pacers, though. The fact they play no defense kills them. If either star, mostly Tyrese, has a bad game, they lose. I understand that, but at the same time, it's DeMar DeRozan in an important game. I just don't trust it whatsoever. But again, the Pacers, they could beat anyone and they could lose anyone. It just depends on the night. They're meh. That's the best I could describe it. The Pacers are a meh team, just because I don't like their lack of defense. I really don't. And like Crucial says, and what I say in the chat, if you don't have defense, it's going to be unreliable. And it's much more reliable to have defense in the playoffs, because then if your offense isn't there, then you have something to fall back on. Crucial PG in the chat said they're wild cards because game to game you don't know what you're getting. And I mean, if you're Doc Rivers, then the solution is we just hit shots, plain and simple, no adjustments. But I really think that this team on the defensive end is going to be a real problem. But with that, we are out of time for this second segment, so we're going to continue talking about the NBA games that happened last night. And we're going to rip the Band-Aid off quickly in the beginning of that segment. So I'll be right back after this short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to do a quick recap of all of the NBA games that went down yesterday. So I said in the second segment that I was going to rip the Band-Aid off quickly, and I am. The Brooklyn Nets, they played the Detroit Pistons, and they lost! Those of you on the podcast that are like the audio listeners can't see, but I am absolutely, like, my hands are on my face right now. It is the worst team in the NBA. The Brooklyn Nets lost. I don't understand it. I don't. I really don't. Fire this coach. Fire this coach, please. It's not looking good for Brooklyn. The season is over. The season is over. Cancel it. Don't even show up to any of these games. Let Mikal Bridges get his record of like consecutive games played, and that's it. The season's over. We're done. But complete bias aside, Dennis Schroeder ended the game with 31 points. Bridges ended the game with 13 points. Shot 4 of 11 from the field. Fantastic. Lonnie Walker ended the game with 21 points and shot 8 of 18 from the field. Again, fantastic. Claxton ended the game with 15 points, 5 of 8 from the field. That is actually fantastic. And Dennis Smith Jr. shot 3 of 10 from the field. Fantastic. This Brooklyn Nets team is bad. They are way worse than what I thought. And part of that might be because we do not have a certain power forward in the lineup because he is injured yet again and taking, I don't even know what he's doing, but he's finding an excuse to not play any game whatsoever. I'm not even going to mention his name because I just want him gone, please. But with all that aside, the Pistons, they actually played very well in this game. And Jaden Ivey ended the game with 34 points. Cade Cunningham ended the game with 32 points and 11 assists. Cade Cunningham is a very good basketball player, and he's a very good point guard. It's unfortunate that he's on the Pistons. But then again, maybe it's not so unfortunate because right now the Pistons are on top of the world. They won a game. And this makes, on one end, like, I'm very, very distraught. But on the other end, it just makes the Wizards situation all that funnier because right now, the Wizards are the worst team in the Eastern Conference and the worst team in the NBA in terms of record and in general. And going back to the beginning of the season where Kyle Kuzma tweeted out, just don't be that team, it's very, very ironic now. And it's possible that, like I said in the previous podcast, it's possible that the Wizards could actually break or tie the Pistons' all-time losing streak, like the Pistons' longest losing streak, which was 28. Because right now they're on a losing streak as well. Even though the Wizards are the favorite to win in this next game against Charlotte, it would just be so funny if they don't. It would be absolutely hilarious if they don't. So I'll take a win there, just because like I want to see that matchup. The Pistons go up against the Wizards, but still, like, this is just very, very disappointing for the Brooklyn Nets, and the coach needs to be gone. He needs to be gone after this season. But I digress. The Dallas Mavericks played against the Miami Heat in a very, very intense competition. The final score was 114-108. Luka Doncic ended the game with 35 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists. Luka Doncic has been ridiculous on the offensive side of the ball this after this All-Star break, and this is his 4th consecutive game recording a triple-double with finishing at least with 35 points or more. And this is the longest streak in NBA history. So this kid is insane, and it's ridiculous how this team is just holding him back from being in MVP talks. Kyrie Irving, he ended the game with 23 points and shot 9 of 19 from the field. So a little bit inefficient, but again, doesn't matter. A win is a win is a win. The Miami Heat were just gaining traction because there was a lot of talk going on about playoff Jimmy Butler. I think he's a myth personally, and it really showed tonight because he ended the game with 14 points, 6 of 12 from the field. Didn't shoot the ball as much as Terry Rozier, who ended the game with 27 points. And Duncan Robinson ended the game with 19 points. And let's see, Bam Adebayo, I almost forgot about him. He ended the game with 5 of 14 and 14 points. So not really that efficient. Do the Miami Heat have it in them to make a good, or make a deep playoff run like they've done previous years and the previous year? Not entirely sure. I don't really think so. I mean, if we're going to go off of what pattern's been and how consistent they've been, the Heat beat the Bucks, then the Bucks beat the Heat, then the Heat beat the Bucks, and now it's time for the Bucks to beat the Heat. So, if that stays true, that would be hilarious. But I'd completely there wasn't really much that needed to be said about this game. When Luka Doncic drops 35 points in a triple double, there's really nothing that you can do to stop that. Now, we were talking about the Pacers, so I might as well go ahead and talk about them losing to the Timberwolves without Karl Anthony Towns. So, Anthony Edwards ended the game with 44 points, and Rudy Gobert ended the game with 18 points and 14 rebounds. So, one thing that the Timberwolves have, if their offense isn't there, their defense is there, because Rudy Gobert has once again led a team to the number 1 ranked defense in the NBA. And this is something that the team can fall back on unlike the Pacers, where the Pacers can't necessarily fall back on defense as much as the Timberwolves. And defense was the reason why they ended up winning this game. And Tyrese Halliburton, he ended the game with 23 and 13, but he hasn't really been scoring the ball that well. He hasn't really had monster performances like he's had in the play-in tournament. But with that in mind, or the mid-season tournament, the mid-season tournament. And he shot 9 of 15 from the field. Pascal Siakam shot 10 for 20 from the field for 24 points. And everybody else shot very poorly from the field. And there was a lot of defense going on from the Timberwolves side. And it makes total sense because it's without Karl Anthony Towns, you need something to fall back on. And they had that this game. Rudy Gobert, he definitely is proving his value. He's in the running for Defensive Player of the Year alongside with Victor Wembanyama. This has sort of been the value part that Draymond Green was talking about and that I was talking about on my previous podcasts. And it really shows because the defense that he played, it led to wins. As opposed to Victor Wembanyama, to the defense where he plays, where it doesn't necessarily lead to wins. Again, not entirely his fault, but it's just something to think about. And it's just because Rudy Gobert, this isn't the first time that he's led a team to the number 1 ranked defense. It really shows that he has some sort of value on the defensive side of the ball. But going on to some more games that ended up going down, the Toronto Raptors played against the Phoenix Suns, and the Suns ended up winning 120 to 113. Looking at the box scores, Grayson Allen also broke the Phoenix Suns record for most threes hit in the first quarter with 7 of them. So he was absolutely insane just in the first quarter, because the rest of the game, he only made 1 3-pointer. Yeah, not very nice. He went from going 7 for 7 to 1 for 7. And I mean, in the end of the day, it didn't really matter, because like he ended the game with 26 points and he did what he needed to do. But like it just goes to show you, like, sometimes you could be on fire, and then sometimes, like, when you need to hit the shots later in the game, you can't, and you need defense, something to fall back on. Kevin Durant, but then again, being the Phoenix Suns, maybe you just have way too much offense to fall back on, because Kevin Durant ended the game with 35 points, 11 of 19 from the field, and Bradley Beal ended the game with 20 points, 8 for 16 from the field. And Bol was also made an appearance, and the game 5 of 7 from the field, 1 for 1 from 3. And their team as a whole shot 42% from 3. Now, the Raptors, they also are... It's a bit concerning for Phoenix, because the Raptors, they didn't have Scotty Barnes in this game. And the fact that this game was somewhat competitive towards the end, really, it does not make any sense if you are the Phoenix Suns. They should be winning by a lot more. Then again, it's probably could be a result of their lack of defense, the fact that like they allow teams to score a lot of points, and they sort of expect that to cancel. Similar to the Pacers, they sort of expect their scoring to cancel out. The Suns don't have Devin Booker, so you could argue that they were also shorthanded, but they also have so many other players off of the bench that it doesn't really feel like they're shorthanded, if that makes sense. But I digress. This team, like right now, they're fighting to hold the 6th seed in the Western Conference. They play the Boston Celtics tomorrow at 8:30, so we'll see exactly just where they stand. If they're able to actually beat the Celtics, then maybe my opinion on Phoenix will change just a little bit. But as of right now, I really think that they need defense to fall back on. That's just me. Now, the next game on the list is the Kings going up against the Spurs. Now, the Kings ended up winning 131 to 129, and it was a great game from De'Aaron Fox, who I think is a better point guard than Tyrese Halliburton. De'Aaron Fox ended the game with 33 points. Sabonis ended the game with a near triple-double, 31 points, 17 rebounds, 9 assists. And it was a great closing minute to this game. De'Aaron Fox, he didn't shoot that efficient from the field. But, I mean, when you get 33 points, I really don't think you can ask much for one of your players. Maybe, like, take fewer shots to get those points. But other than that, a win is a win is a win is a win. And looking at the box scores, Devin Vassell ended the game with 30 points. And there was no Victor Wembanyama in this game. And the fact that they made the game close without Victor Wembanyama is very, very confusing. Because what on earth, what is that? Like, that does not make any sense. But then again, I mean, maybe the team just doesn't really like playing with Victor. I've always had that theory, like, that the team for some reason is like, I feel like they're jealous of Victor, and it might not be true. That's just my opinion, and that's like what I've seen from them on the court, because they're really reluctant to pass him the ball sometimes. But I mean, they ended up making the game close against a very competitive team, so props to them. They are the worst team in the Western Conference, however, they're still trying to rebuild, and we'll just see how the rebuild goes, but Victor Wembanyama is definitely worth all of the hype. And with that, that is the end of the NBA recap, so I'm going to go ahead and reveal what the fourth segment is, and that is going to be some hot takes. Now, I'm going to look at some hot takes about every single NBA team, so that might be a much longer segment than this one, so I will be right back after this short break. And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we are going to be looking at some hot takes for every single NBA team. Now, I saw this in a YouTube video, and I'm going to put the link to the YouTube video in the description after when I'm done editing, so that way you guys can go ahead and check it out and really listen to exactly what he said if you are interested. But I'm just going to read off like what it said in this website called Clarity, where it allows me to sort of like look at a video, and the video essentially summarizes what the speaker said. So I'm going to go ahead and read off. Let's start with the Boston Celtics. So he had concerns about the over-reliance on the three-point shooting for a championship run. Now, I actually mentioned this previously in the first segment when I was talking about Boston and them relying on the three-pointer. So with this in mind, I mean, like, I totally agree with this, and I don't think it's that much of a hot take because, like, it could go good or bad for the Boston Celtics. And, like, if you're a Celtics fan, you hope it goes good, but there's a chance that it might end up going bad. And this has sort of happened, and this has sort of been happening for so many years with the Boston Celtics. They end up just choking in a lot of these games, and it does end up going bad, like the over-reliance on three-point shots. Now, moving on to the Sixers, he is very optimistic about Joel Embiid's playoff performance and the team's system. So, obviously, like with Joel Embiid injured, he did say that he does plan to return later in the regular season, and that could mean that they could potentially, like, they could still have hopes for the playoffs. But I don't really agree with this hot take whatsoever. I think Joel Embiid is one of the worst playoff performers in the NBA right now. Both the eye test and the stats show this. Every single year, he just ends up falling short of like making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. The only MVP to never make the to never make a conference finals appearance. And with that in mind, I don't agree with this take at all. Now, next team on the list is the Knicks, and he declares this as the best playoff team since the Carmelo Anthony era after acquiring OG Anunoby from trade. I actually completely agree with this. Now, Carmelo Anthony's teams, they haven't really been able to like make it that far into the playoffs because while Carmelo Anthony's team in New York was getting good, LeBron James was in his prime with the Miami Heat. And I mean, honestly, he's probably still in his prime if you really think about it, but that was when LeBron was going on that stint where he made 8 straight finals appearances. And it's really difficult to make it far when you had to go up against the Heat in the second round. And, like, I actually think that this Knicks team could make it farther than Carmelo Anthony's Knicks' teams and could definitely make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and compete against the Boston Celtics. I really hope that happens. Now, for the Brooklyn Nets, he is very skepticistic about Cam Thomas's abilities and suggested that he may be a sixth man. Now, this is actually not a bad take. I totally understand that. Cam Thomas's defense is not that good. Like, he's basically a cone on defense. And, however, he's very good on offense. But there are times where his offense might not be there. So, having him as an option for being a sixth man, I think is a lot better than putting him in the starting lineup. But he has to get a lot of minutes as a sixth man. It's got to be like Jamal Crawford as the sixth man type thing. And it's like, if you're putting him on the bench, you have to also compensate him with minutes because he deserves those minutes. Now, the Toronto Raptors are next, changing perspective on trading Siakam due to recent roster improvements. Now, the Raptors and their season is it's basically done. Like, now that they don't, Scotty Barnes, he like recently underwent surgery on his left hand, and I don't think that even when Scotty Barnes was in the lineup, I didn't really see the Toronto Raptors making that much noise in the postseason whatsoever. So I actually don't agree with this whatsoever. I think they should have definitely traded Pascal, and they should just work on a rebuild and make the team better coming into next season. Now, the Milwaukee Bucks, he dismisses concerns, emphasizing their potent offense led by Giannis and Dame. I don't agree with this hot take either. Now, these concerns are real because Doc Rivers messing up in the postseason is real. And with that in mind, I think it's time to worry now for the with the Milwaukee Bucks as opposed to worry later for the Milwaukee Bucks. I've said this every single time. Doc Rivers, he does not make adjustments. Former players themselves even say that he doesn't make mid-game adjustments in the fourth quarter, or like in any quarter or in any playoff series, and it's not good. And the fact that like the Bucks had to replace their coach, like when they were doing just fine, I don't agree with that whatsoever. So next team is the Indiana Pacers. He believes that defensive improvements are possible without trades, highlighting scheme and player utilization. So this was before the trade, but it turned out to not be true whatsoever. Like their defense is just still bad. Their defense is really, really horrible. They haven't tried to even improve on the defensive side of the ball. They're just like meh, and they worry about more offense. And I really think that this is a mistake. To have that kind of philosophy, especially going into the postseason. The Cleveland Cavaliers, a hot take for him is that he proposes a trade, like he proposes trading Jarrett Allen to allow Evan Mobley to develop as the center. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this. Seeing as Jarrett Allen is a former Nets player, I really think he's good and he really brings value to the team. Like, the Fro can get a lot of blocks, he gets a lot of rebounds, and he's very efficient from the field, finishing lobs, setting you good screens. It's like, what don't you want from him in a center? But I also see like the potential in Evan Mobley developing. Like, he has a jump shot, and he also has the defense, so he could definitely develop to being a better player than Jarrett Allen. But as of right now, I really think the Cavs are in a good spot and they don't really need to adjust any lineups. Now, the Chicago Bulls, they advise fans not to overhype Kobe White and cautioning against building the team around him. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this, because they've had Zach LaVine for a very, very long time, and they haven't really done much with Zach LaVine. So maybe a change in scenery and like a change in like a new guard to build around is what this Chicago Bulls team needs. But we'll see what they do, and we'll see if they stick. I mean, they've been sticking with Zach LaVine, so I mean, who knows? But the Detroit Pistons are the next team. He argues that the team, despite the record, can still beat any college team. This is a no-brainer. And people who think that an NBA team could lose to a college team is out of their mind. Like, the NBA athletes are so much better than the college athletes, and it just does, like, I don't think this is a hot take at all. Like, even with the Pistons being bad, like, I really don't think this is a hot take, because the NBA level, the jump from the NBA to, like, from college to the NBA is ridiculous, and it's not going to faze any of these athletes that are in the NBA. Now, the Miami Heat are next. He praises the team's depth and improved roster, suggesting a better postseason performance than the previous year. I haven't really touched much on the Heat, and like most of the time when I do touch up on the Heat, I usually say that they're going to lose to the Bucks because I think this is their year to lose. I mean, it's win, lose to Bucks, then win, then now it's lose to Bucks. But again, like he does make a point saying that the roster has improved considerably compared to previous years. But I don't know. I'm just not feeling the Miami Heat this time. I'm not a really big fan of them. I don't really feel them at all. Now, next team is the Orlando Magic. So, They suggest the need for a reliable point guard to elevate the team's playoff potential, and I actually agree with this. I think Paolo Banchero, he needs like another option on the team and a competent point guard that could not only make his life easier on the offensive side of the ball, so he doesn't have to do everything every single time, but like it could also like he could give Paolo much easier looks if he has a good point guard. I mean, imagine if he pairs up with Trae Young, because there are rumors that Trae Young like is going to get traded. So that could be that could be a pretty good duo. I'm not entirely sure how they'll fare on the defensive end, but that could be a pretty good duo. Now, next team on the list is the Atlanta Hawks, and he questions the wisdom of building a contender around Trae Young due to historical challenges with small guards. And I understand where he's coming from in saying that like a lot of relying on small guards that can't really play defense it doesn't really win you championships, especially when you build around them. And being so ISO heavy that they are, if he's not really good on the offensive side of the ball, then the team is going to struggle tremendously. But I don't really think Trae Young is that bad. I just think like if he has the right pieces, he can take a team very, very far. He did this when he went up against Philly, making it to the Eastern Conference Finals and even winning a few games against the Milwaukee Bucks in that series. So I'm a bit optimistic with Trae Young, but maybe that's just because I have a bias, but I'm not entirely sure. The Charlotte Hornets, they should attribute potential success to actually wait, no, I'm not gonna do the Charlotte Hornets because this one is wrong. Now, the Timberwolves, he declares that the current roster has the best in franchise history, surpassing the 2004 team led by Kevin Garnett, And honestly, I totally agree with them because this is like the first time in a while that the Timberwolves have been like the number 1 seed. And even when they were with Kevin Garnett, they weren't the number 1 seed, but they were still competing in like the playoffs. So we'll just have to like wait and see if they can make a deep playoff run. But countless of times, Kevin Garnett, with the Timberwolves, he would lose in the first round every single time. And it wasn't his fault because he had no help on that team. Absolutely no help. But still, like, this team, definitely like the best the Timberwolves have been in a while. Next is OKC. He advocates for acquiring another reliable postseason player to enhance the team's contending status. I 100% agree with this because, like, while they are great in the regular season, they haven't really shown me that they are experienced enough in the playoffs. So, with that in mind, we have to wait and see if they are the same animals that they are in the regular season as they are in the playoffs, or if they elevate their game. Next is the Utah Jazz. Now, he argues against trading Larry Nance Jr., expressing confidence in the team's current trajectory. That turned out to backfire because right now they just traded basically everyone that was important, and it seems like they're going through a rebuilding phase right now. And I honestly think it's a good move for the Jazz because they do have good pieces on the team. They just need to rebuild so they can get better pieces and or pieces that could help them. Now, next team is the Denver Nuggets. He highlights Peyton Watson as a crucial bench piece in the postseason, emphasizing his defensive skills. Now, I really don't I don't think that's going to be much of a factor when you have Jokic and Jamal Murray in the playoffs. They've shown that they can perform against anyone when the lights are brightest. So I really don't think that's going to be much of a factor. The Blazers, he suggests that Scotty Barnes might be better suited. Why are the Blazers talking about Scotty Barnes? That's a little bit weird, but I'm going to skip that. I guess the app's messing up. So the Kings, he acknowledges De'Aaron Fox's significant improvement as a three-point shooter and its impact on the team's success. So that is very, very true. I actually agree with that completely because like De'Aaron Fox, like I said earlier, he's better than Tyrese in my personal opinion, and he can definitely take a team far. He just needs the playoff experience now. The reason why they ended up losing that game in 7 games was most likely because they were nervous and Steph Curry was going off. Not much you can do when Steph Curry drops 50 points. The Phoenix Suns, he's very skepticistic about the contender status, suggesting that multiple changes are needed beyond firing a coach. And I agree with that because, like, you're not being a Brooklyn Nets fan, I've seen the ISO lineup. I've seen it before. And not a guaranteed to win you championships. Next is the Lakers. He stresses that firing Darvin Ham is only the beginning of necessary changes for the struggling team. I 100% agree with this. Darvin Ham, he needs to be gone, but there's also a lot of other things in this lineup that need to be fixed. I mean, they've been on a roll recently, but they've been very disappointing. And when you have honestly, yes, I'm going to be when you have LeBron James on your team in his prime, and you're not even in playoff contention, that is wasting a season. I'm going to be harsh on that. I didn't want to be particularly harsh, but I am. Because every other team, when LeBron was on his prime, they've been able to make it. Now with the Lakers, they've mismanaged this, and they've mismanaged LeBron and his team so poorly. And it's very difficult to watch. The Golden State Warriors, he warns that without a significant roster adjustment, Steph Curry might consider leaving in a few years. I don't think Steph Curry's leaving the Golden State Warriors. I think the Warriors have given him too much, and he's done too much for the Warriors for him to even want to leave. I think he's going to retire there along with Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, and that's really it. I think that's what's going to happen. Now, next team is the Pelicans. He contends that Zion Williamson's return to top form is essential for the team to become contenders. I agree with this 100%. They need Zion and they need him to be that dominant force, and I really hope that Zion will succeed. Other than LeBron and Giannis, he is one of the best finishers around the rim that I've ever seen. Being 6'6" and being that strong and as strong as he is, it's very, very impressive. I really hope he succeeds. Next team is the Houston Rockets. He praises Jabari Smith Jr. as an underrated young player with strong defensive and offensive skills. I mean, I'm a little bit reluctant on this. I'm not a big fan of Jabari Smith. I'm actually much more of a fan of Sengun, and I think that's the guy that you should build the team around him instead of Jabari Smith Jr. Next, and Jabari Smith, he has his moments where he's, really good on defense and stuff like that. But he also has his moments where he's bad on offense. And Sengun, I feel is much more of a consistent bet because, he's a good center. And that's sort of, he the hype is real around that kid. Next is the Grizzlies. He considers Ja Morant's injury potentially beneficial, suggesting that it could lead to a better future with a high draft pick. I understand this thinking. And, I understand, why the Grizzlies are sort of, tanking so they could get that better pick so that way Ja Morant can come in and play with a much better team. That would definitely help the team. But as of where they're looking at right now, in the regular season, it definitely, looks like they'll get a high pick in that draft. So this is a good move by them. And the last team is the Spurs. And the content cuts off before the speaker can be... Oh, great. So I can't even talk about the Spurs. So that's it. I mean, should I give a hot take on the Spurs? I really don't have that much of a hot take for the Spurs because, there's not really much that needs to be said. I expected the team to be really bad. I didn't expect them to, I didn't think it would take Victor Wembanyama this quick to, develop into a very good player in the league. And seeing as how he's going to be the Rookie of the Year coming the end of this season, I don't really I've sort of expected all of this, and I don't really have much of a hot take. So with that is the end of this show segment, and that is the end of the show. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And like I do every single time in the first and second segments, remember to tip and to donate to get your comments recognized. Use the link displayed below the ticker or the link in the description. That is gsmcspodcast.net. Really helps the show. Puts your comments directly in front of my screen. And that is it for today's show. I am your host, Nelson. And as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great.